Hey friends, welcome back. Today we are going to check how we can create EKS cluster through AWS console. First, let's review the steps which we need to follow. So first we will review the VPC setup, and then we'll create a role for the cluster, and then we will create a role for the worker nodes, and then we'll create the EKS, then assign a user to the EKS, and then we will review the cluster details through the kubectl command, and then we will deploy an application to the new cluster. So let's get started. Log into the AWS console and let's search for IAM. Go to the IAM console. So we have to create two roles. One is for the cluster and another is for the node group. So let's go to roles, create a node role, and select the use case as EKS. So this is first the role for cluster. So here we will select the use case as EKS cluster, and by default AWS is selected the correct permission which required, that is Amazon EKS cluster policy. Let's create the role name as EKS cluster role. You can change the description if you want, and then go ahead and create the role. So the cluster role is created. Now let's create the second role, that is for the node group. So here we need to select the EC2 because node group is a group of EC2 instances, and then go to the next step. There are three policies that needs to be selected. One is select type worker node. So first is a worker node policy. Second is the CNI plugin policy, and then third one is the EC2 container registry policy. So you need to select the read-only policy here. Let's go to the next step. Give a role name. Create. So now the roles are created. Let's go back to the IAM console and select VPC. Let's review the VPC we have. So I have created a custom VPC with a CIDR range of 10.0.0.0.16. On this VPC, I have two subnets. There are two private subnet and one public subnet. We will create uh, the EKS in the private subnet, and then we'll create a gem server or even an EC2 instance in the private subnet itself, and we'll log into the private subnet and we'll try to access through the kubectl. Then comes to the route table. We have public and private. On the public route table, there is a route to the internet gateway, and the private route table, we have access to the NAT gateway. So that means private instances can access internet through this NAT gateway, but no traffic will directly come to the private instances from internet. All right, so let's go back and go to the EKS console, and then let's start creating the EKS. So type EKS here, then select EKS and go to add the cluster and create cluster. Give a name. I'll give it as demo cluster. Select the version. So 1.28 is the default version. Since we have created EKS cluster row, it's automatically selected. If you have multiple, this prompt will ask you to select the one which you want. Okay, so then I will select the cluster authentication mode as the EKS API and config map. Then go to the next step. Select a VPC. I have only one VPC, and I will select only the private subnets. Security group, I have a default security group. I will select that. And public and private access, that is fine. If you want to enable any logging, you can enable the loggings. Go to next and select the add-ons. So kubeproxy, core DNS, Amazon VPC CNI, Amazon EKS port identity agent, and these are all important. And then you can continue. So what I'm doing is I'm just selecting the latest version here itself so that I won't get the prompt for updating to the latest version. So this is already latest. Go to next and then click on create. This will take 10 to 15 minutes. When the cluster is created, we will come back and create the worker node, and we'll take it from there. Let's review the status of the cluster. So the cluster is created. Now let's go ahead and create the worker node. So go to the compute tab and come to the node group and add node group. Give a name and select the IAM role. So we already created the EKS worker role. So I am going to the next step and I'm selecting the Amazon EKS on demand. I'm selecting T3 medium and I'm selecting two nodes, and we already selected the private subnet for our cluster, so that private subnets are selected here. Continuing and review and create. This also will take at least 2-3 minutes. Let's wait for the node group and nodes to be created, and then we'll come back and continue. Let's check the status of node creation. Okay, so the node is created and it is active. So the next step is we have to log into the EC2 instance and connect to the cluster through kubectl. But before going to that one, we have a user called demo user. Let's go to IAM and see the user details first. So I have a user called demo user. So this is a user I am using in the EC2 instance to log in and then connect to the EKS cluster. So to associate this demo user to the cluster, we have to follow a couple of steps. So comes to the access and then create an IAM access entry. Create access entries. Select the user, so it is demo user. So if you have any questions or if you need any details about this access, I have a video. I will link the video details in the description. So select the type as standard and go to the next step and select the policy. So I'm selecting the administrative policy and then cluster administrator and then add, next, create. So just confirm the user creation and go back to the come to access and confirm the user is created. Yes, the demo user is created. Now we can go to the EC2 instance. So I have a demo instance and there should be two more instances here. There are two more instances. This is part of the EKS. So this is my demo instance. Let's connect. If you have any doubt on connecting on this EC2 instance, which is created on a private network, let's check that one. So this particular instance doesn't have any public IP. So go to networking. So it has only private IP address. There is no public IP. So if you have any questions regarding how to connect to a EC2 instance which is on private network, I have a video. I will add the link in the description below. So let's go there and update the privilege, and then I already have AWS CLI and kubectl installed in this one. So let's run a command AWS EKS update config. So this is for updating that configuration details into the kubectl. Name equal to demo cluster and then region is US East 1. sorry, update kube config. Okay, so it's been updated. Now let's kubectl get po. So there is no resources on the default namespace. So let's check kubectl get po on the cube system namespace. So yeah, so all um, the cube system ports are up and running. So that means cluster is running fine. So let's create a deployment and see whether the new deployment is working fine. So kubectl create deployment, given name. So I'm using the Nginx for the deployment, and image is equal to Nginx. So let's run. Okay, so the deployment is created. kubectl get po. So it's on a default namespace. So that is running. Now let's check this. Let's review the port log. kubectl logs -f. So copy the port name. So it started and it is running. So this is how we can create an EKS cluster through console and add the instances and connect to the instance and add the instance add the deployments through kubectl. Thanks for watching. We will see in the next video.